Today's video will discuss chapter 11.1, angle and line relationships. So I want to start with four relationships that are the most common in terms of angle. And so starting up here with the vertical angles, 1 and 3 are vertical angles and 2 and 4 are vertical angles. So the idea is that anything that is across from each other when you create these two intersecting lines become vertical angles. So 1 and 3 are vertical angles, meaning they are congruent, and 2 and 4 are vertical angles, meaning they are congruent. So they are identical in terms of their angle value, right? So it's angle 1 and angle 3 and angle 2, and notice that the congruent symbol is an equal sign with a squiggly line on top. Adjacent angles, if you think of the word adjacent, it means next to. Angle 5 and angle 6 are next to. They can be congruent, however, they are not always congruent. So for example, in this particular problem, since this is not a 90-degree angle, 5 and 6 are not congruent. They are just adjacent angles. So remember that it doesn't necessarily mean that they are congruent, the way vertical angles are. Complementary means that the two angles add up to or have a sum of 90 degrees. So complementary, 7 and 8 would be complementary, meaning if I take the measure of angle 7 and I add it to the measure of angle 8, I would get 90 degrees. And then supplementary means that they are 180 degrees. And so if I take the measure of angle 9 and I add it to the measure of angle 10, it would equal 180. Okay, and the reason why it's good to know something like this is, for example, in this problem, if I knew the measure of angle 8, and I knew that this was a right angle, and I know that 7 and 8 are complementary, I can figure out what 7 is because I know that 7 plus 8 would, the measure of 7 and the measure of 8 would have to be 90, right? And same idea here. If I knew the measure of 10, I could find the measure of 9. Right? So that's one way, or those would be angle relationships. Now if you want to talk about line relationships, we're looking at two parallel lines, and so this is the symbol for a parallel line, right? The arrow on the line, not necessarily these arrows that are off the line, but these arrows on the line, and they have a transversal, which is this line that's going across, which is going to create 8 angles, right? I've numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want you to notice they're kind of going clockwise, right? And so if you think about alternate interior angles, so there are 3 kind of line relationships we're going to talk about here. Alternate interior angles would be angles that are inside the two lines, the two parallel lines that are congruent. So for example, angle 4 is congruent to angle 6, and angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. Right? So this angle and this angle are alternate interior angles. 4 and 6 are alternate interior angles. So they're on alternating sides of the transversal, and they are inside the parallel lines. So alternate exterior angles would be the opposite. They're going to be outside of the parallel lines, but on opposite sides or alternate sides of the transversal. So for example, 1 and 7, angle 1 is congruent to angle 7, right? Those are alternate exterior, and the alternate exterior would be angle 2 and angle 8. So angle 1, sorry, that's a 2. I know it's not the greatest writing. Angle 1 and angle 7, angle 2 and angle 8, those are alternate exterior because they are outside, so they're exterior of the parallel lines, and they are alternating sides of the transversal. Okay, and then corresponding angles are angles that are essentially in the same spot of each of the lines. So for example, this 1 is in the same spot as this 5. So you've got angle 1 is corresponding to angle 5. Angle 2 is corresponding to angle 6. Angle 3, which is here, is corresponding to angle 7. And angle 4 corresponds with angle 8. Okay, so the reason why you would want to know this is because this helps us to figure out, well, I know then that these two angles, right, are congruent, which means that these two angles, right, 1 and 7, are actually alternate exterior angles. 5 and 7 are actually vertical angles, right? And then 3 and 7 are corresponding. So I know what, if you gave me the measure of angle 5, I now also know that 1, 3, and 7 are identical, right? Because angle 5 is alternate interior with angle 3, it's vertical with angle 7, and it's corresponding with angle 1. So all of those would then be congruent. Okay, so make sure that we're understanding alternate interior, alternate exterior, and corresponding angles. Okay, and then the last thing I want to talk about is doing some algebra to solve a problem. So I got angle ABD, that's ABD, so this whole thing equals 164 degrees. I know that this part, ABC, is 2x plus 23 degrees, and I know that CBD is x degrees. So if I take the measure of angle ABC plus the measure of angle CBD, that should equal 164. Okay, at this point what I want to do is combine like terms. So I'm going to get 3x. I'm going to take the 2x plus x plus 23 equals 164, right? So all I did there was combine the like terms. And then going to subtract 23 from both sides. Right? So that goes away. So I'm left with 3x equals 141. And then if I take 141 and I divide that by 3, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3, I get that x equals 47. Okay, now keep in mind, I know then that that means that this angle is 47 degrees, because that's x. This one, however, is going to be 2x plus 23, so we need to take either 164 and subtract 47, or I could go 2 times 47, which is 94, and then 94 plus 23, which should give me 117. So I know this is 117, and I know that this is 47. Right? Then let me just double check and make sure I didn't do anything too crazy. All right. So 117 plus 47 equals 164. All right, so that's all we got for you today on angle and line relationships. Thank you very much for watching the video. Don't forget to do the problems on the bottom of the page. I'll see you in class.